John chapter 8 from verse 1 through to verse 7. Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him. And he sat down and taught them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? What sayest thou? Jesus, what do you say? Moses says to stone her, but what do you say, Jesus? They say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Verse 4 and verse 5. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? Verse 6. This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down, with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he had them not. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Verse 1. Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives. Brother, sister, all over the world, Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives first. He had a fellowship with the Father first. Have you had a fellowship with the Father today? Your finest hour, my brother, your finest hour, my sister, is that early hour, that first hour you spend between you and the Father, fellowshipping. Beautiful place, the fellowship with the Father. Beautiful place, your fellowship with the Father. For there he fills your spirit man with his love, with his strength, and with the wisdom necessary for the day. The greatest thing you can do is start your day in the presence of the Father, where he can load you with his presence, with his joy, with everything you require for a successful day. The first priority of Jesus must be your own first priority as well. And then in verse 2, early in the morning, he came again into the temple. So ideally, this first hour of fellowship between you and the Father should be very early in the morning. Very early in the morning. And as you do that, as you give God that early hour, he loads you with his love, with his presence, with the strength and the wisdom required for that day. And then you can come and talk, think, do things relating to the house of God, the temple, the church. So the church is not the Christian's first priority. The church is only after you have related with the Father. After you have related with the Father. After you have related with the Father. And then the same verse says, all the people came unto him. So the people is not your first priority. Are you a preacher? Are you a teacher? The people is not the first priority. The first priority is the Father. Fellowship. Glory be to God. Fellowship with the Father. Fellowship with the Father. Fellowship with the Father. And when you have done that, then you can do things relating to the house of God. It is only after these two things that the issue of the people, looking for the people, looking after the people, thinking of the people, comes into the picture. And then he sat down and then he taught them. So you have nothing to teach if you have not answered these questions. 1, have you been with the Father? Have you fellowshiped with him one-on-one? 2, have you come into the temple? Have you spent time in the temple? And then you can think of the people. and relate with the people, and then the Spirit of the Lord can pour through you a teaching for the people. Verse 3. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. Now, adultery is wrong. When they have set her in the midst, I want you to have a picture of so many tongues around her, and she is in the middle of the tongues, and the tongues are speaking vile things against her. There's practically no day that you will go through and there will be no tongues speaking one negative word or the other, be it in the office, one negative word or the other, be it in the bus, in the train, one negative word or the other, be it written, one negative word or the other, be it an email, one negative word or the other, be it a phone call, one negative word or the other, be it a text, one negative word or the other. Tongues surrounding you speaking negatively, be it in your school, in your uni, wherever, there are always negative tongues. Now, I want you to picture that these are negative tongues all in a circle, and then this particular woman is right in the middle of those tongues, those negative, vile tongues, poisonous tongues, tongues that were speaking evil against her. Verse 4. And then they say unto him, Master, referring to Jesus, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. So there was no doubt about it. She did do what they said she did. What do you do when the tongues that are speaking evil against you? It is one thing when they are speaking evil against you and it is a lie. It's another thing when these tongues are speaking evil against you and it is actually true. You have actually done this wrong thing that they are talking about. What do you do when your accusers actually have evidence of your wrongdoing? What do you do when the tongues that surround you are not good? They are negative. But not only are they not good, not only are they negative, but they are actually accurate. They are describing the facts. They are describing an action. They are describing an error. They are describing a mistake. They are describing something you have done, perhaps in your present. Sometimes it might even be from your past. What do you do when your past wants to swallow your future? What do you do when your past wants to negate your presence? What do you do when it seems your past is telling you there is no second chance and is asking that you be stoned, that you be destroyed, that an end be put to your life, that you not be given a second chance, no forgiveness, no mercy? What do you do? And that was what they asked Jesus. What sayest thou? They said, Moses said we should stone her, but what do you say? This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. Now, listen, I've read this passage so many times, but this morning I woke and the Spirit of the Lord was telling me it was not only the woman that was on trial, Jesus was on trial. Hello, Jesus was on trial. They were trying Jesus. Listen to what verse 6 said. It said, this they said, tempting him, referring to Jesus. So it was not only a temptation for the woman that was caught in adultery, it was a temptation for Jesus himself. In other words, every time you go through the day, remember this. Every time there's an opportunity to accuse somebody, every time there's an opportunity to judge somebody, every time there's an opportunity to say he didn't do it well, look at that, he didn't say it well, he didn't write it well, he should have said it this way, I wouldn't have done it that way. Remember this. You are also on trial. It is a trial of your Christianity. Is that what Jesus will do? So Jesus was also on trial. But let's see how Jesus responded to the trial. Not only of the woman, but of himself as well. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he had them not. First reaction, whenever there is an opportunity to accuse somebody, judge somebody, the first thing, and God gives us grace to do it, is what the Word of God said. He said, be slow to speak. Be slow to speak. If I could write it so bold all over the sky, in blazing fire. Be slow to speak. Christian, be slow to speak. Brother, be slow to speak. Sister, be slow to speak. Don't be quick to judge. We are so quick to jump in and have our say. We are so quick to have our say when they are bringing up that issue of that brother or that sister behind their back. And they are saying, did you see that? Oh, did you hear this? We are so quick to say the negative thing. But be slow to speak. The master was not in a hurry to speak. The master stooped down. Stoop down. When there's an opportunity to accuse another, stoop down. Don't think of yourself more highly than another. Stoop down. Bring yourself down. When there's an opportunity to accuse somebody, what the master did was he stooped down. Why did he stoop down? He stooped down so that he will not speak in a hurry. Have you realized that words spoken have no reverse button? It is not like your instrument at home, whether a CD player or a recorder that you can just press rewind. No, in life there is no rewind button. Once those words are spoken, they are like a broken egg. You cannot gather them back together again. So Jesus took his time. He was not in a hurry. It was an opportunity to accuse, but the master was not in a hurry. It was an opportunity to judge, but the master was not in a hurry. Have you been in a hurry? Have you been in a hurry to judge, in a hurry to accuse? This is the lesson from the master this morning. Stoop down. Keep quiet. Be slow to speak when there's an opportunity to judge. And what happened? He wrote on the ground. He wrote on the ground. There are so many people that have said so many things about what he wrote on the ground, but it does not matter what he wrote on the ground. It does not matter if he wrote on the ground, I am come so that people will not be destroyed. It doesn't matter whether he wrote that your future should not be determined by your past. Maybe he wrote on the ground that there is forgiveness. Maybe he wrote on the ground that there should be second chances. Maybe he wrote on the ground that you should forgive others so that you can be forgiven. Maybe he wrote on the ground that it is a man to err, but it is divine to forgive. Maybe he wrote on the ground that you should not judge others. Maybe he wrote on the ground that it is time to get past that wrong that was done to you. Maybe he wrote on the ground that you should use love that covereth a multitude of sins. Whatever he wrote on the ground, he pretended as if he did not hear them. Have you ever overlooked an error? He pretended as if he did not hear them. Have you ever heard something negative and just overlooked it? That is a lesson from the master. He pretended as if he did not hear them. Why don't you block your ear to the negative today and open your ears to the positive? Why don't you make up your mind today that you will tune your frequency only to the good? The Bible said, if there be anything holy, if there be anything pure, if there be anything lovely, it said, think on these things. Why don't you make up your mind that your radio today will only pick up the things that will inspire you, the things that will encourage you, the things that will elevate, the things that will make you joyful? Why don't you decide to do as if you had them not when it is negative? Verse 7 finally. So when they continued asking him, so when you overlook those situations and it continues to ask you for a judgment, for a negative word, for an opportunity to accuse another, this is the lesson. Every time you point a single finger to accuse another, there are 4 other fingers pointing back to you. It was not only a temptation for the woman, it was a temptation for Jesus. But do you know what? Jesus said, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Finally, it was also a temptation for the people themselves. So it was not only the woman that was on trial here, it was also Jesus. For they were trying to get an occasion to accuse Jesus. Every time there's an opportunity to accuse another, guess what? You are also accusing yourself. But beyond that, the people that brought the woman were also accusing themselves. By this deed, they were showing a reflection of what is deposited in their hearts. It was out of the abundance of the heart that they spoke such vile, that they demanded such accusation against the woman, such judgment against the woman, to stone her, to destroy her. He that is without sin, let him first cast a stone at her. Today, make up your mind not to be a stone thrower, but a forgiveness giver. Make up your mind to stoop down. Make up your mind to be slow to speak. For there's no reverse button once those words are spoken. People remember words that are spoken 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years after they have been spoken. Jesus teaches us to be slow to speak, particularly when it's an occasion to accuse another. For we are not called into that ministry of accusation, but into the ministry, like he said, of not casting stones, for there is none without sin. May God bless us today. As you go today, may God's grace be upon you. In Jesus' name. Remember, he that is without sin, let him cast a stone.